Morning everybody, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and today we are going to cover how to edit the header or create a custom header in the Divi theme. So first I will open up the page that we created in a previous video, and you can see the header right now. We have our logo set, and I will link to the video where we did that in the card above on your screen, and you'll see we left everything else pretty much undone. We have some fonts set, and we have the menu bar has whatever pages we have listed, just sort of a random collection of pages. So we're going to change that, and then we're also going to overhaul it with a completely custom header in the top. So first things first, we're going to go to Appearance and Customize, and we're going to go through those header settings in a bit more detail one by one. Perfect. So first thing we're going to do is go through the colors, which we've already set for the most part, but I'm going to run through them really quickly. So we have the text color, which is that gray. We have our active link color, which is that yellow that we see over there. Background is white. Drop-down background also white, which we can see if we shrink this down. We'll see that the background of the menu is that white color that we have set. Perfect. And also, before I forget, you can also do responsive checking with these little buttons down here. I didn't cover that in a previous video, so I wanted to add it there. That red was the hamburger menu we just saw, and the text color was that gray, and the animation is a fade. We can choose from any one of these, but I'm going to go with the fade. The X will actually take you out of the customizer, so you want to scroll up and hit the back button there. Just a tip that I've learned from experience. Secondary menu bar. We don't have this one yet, but we're going to add one very soon. Like, we check the box to just make it full width. It doesn't do anything right now because it doesn't exist. So the colors will apply in a moment. Fixed navigation settings. This is if you're scrolling down, you can see that it collapses there. So when you scroll down, if you want things to change, like the color to suddenly be a blue when you're scrolling down, gold up top, blue down there, see that change? You can have that. And then you can have everything else, however you want it to be. Secondary menu link background color. You can get really specific. So the best way to go about this really is to set what you believe is the closest option to what you're trying to set. Hit publish. Have the site open in a new tab, just at the regular home page there. Refresh it. And then when you are navigating, you can see we're testing that blue. And if I was to set background colors or fonts and things like that, these descriptors are pretty close, but they also aren't always in use. It'll have this default blue, whereas something in our main Divi theme settings, which is also in that video linked in the card, may override it. And so it's best to usually guess and check, but that's sort of the general ones that I would use the most, is setting the font and setting the colors in those settings that we went over there. So what I will do now is I'm going to add an email. I'm going to add contact@maplespaceinc.com and a phone number of 555-555-555 and hit publish. In the customizer, sometimes there are a few elements that it can't auto refresh, so you have to hit publish and actually just refresh the customizer. And typically that's because it's a whole new HTML element being added to the page, and it can't live reload that. So now you can see the element is on. Now we have this top bar, and so now when we're in header navigation, secondary menu bar, now we can mess with all these settings. So we can change that to a lovely purple. I'm actually going to set the purple in our color palette. There we go. And the drop-down menu background color, we don't have any drop-downs, so I'll just leave it at the red because it doesn't apply. Actually, no, I will set it to the purple so that it will match in the future in case someone after me adds a drop-down. That's consideration. Default theme font, it looks like it is pulling that font that we set in the other video where we were setting the default text styles, which is set right over inside typography. General settings typography is where we set that, and so that's why it has this consistent font look throughout all of these, because we're just using the default. As you can see, it saves you a lot of time instead of having to set the same, say, Montserrat or whatever, in 20 different places on the site, because then if you ever change your font for a rebrand, which happens more often than you think, then you're a bit hooped. So, saves you a lot of time. Moving on with what you can do with the default header. So far we've changed the colors, we've shown how you can change the fonts, we've shown how you can add the secondary header bar, and in a previous video, I'll just show it for the sake here, you can show and hide social icons. I think those would appear in the top bar if we had some set. I'm not going to do that right now. And you can show and hide the search icon. What we'll cover next is how to make this into a vertical header, which is really easy. You just go into here, header format, and then enable vertical navigation. And look at that, your sidebar comes over here, your top bar stays over there, and you've got this kind of cool book documentation style look. You can make it on the left or the right. I like it on the left though. And you can click on here on defaults, and you can actually change it to like centered inline logo, which kind of breaks a little bit, possibly because it's an SVG. Slide in, so it's just always a slider, and so it slides over and it slides back. I'm not exactly sure how that would slide back over. I'm going to hit publish and see how that would slide back and forth actually. So publish, refresh. And so if we slide that, I see. So it just gets cut off in the customizer. So you can get really crazy with that. That's a little bit unintuitive for the user in most cases. So I'm going to, oh, and then there's full screen, which full screen is pretty cool. You click it and you get this pretty full screen overlay menu, and then you can exit and come back. But I'm going to keep it pretty standard and just go default for now, which it'll look broken, but if I publish and refresh, it'll be fine. I'm just going to refresh. And there we go. So the customizer isn't perfect, it is fallible, but if we refresh, settings will take place and it will figure itself out, because it can only update so many things in live time. Anyhow, the last thing that we will cover before we move on to the custom header is how to change this menu link. You can see we have home and then home again and then uncategorized. Not really professional. And so what we want to do is go to menus, and you can see we have no menus. So we want to create a new menu, and we're going to call it main menu, assuming I can type correctly, and want to be in the primary menu location. That's what this default is looking to. It's looking for that primary menu. Secondary menu is if we wanted to put links up in here, and then footer menu is links down here, respectively. So that's all in the default styles, but we're just going to do the primary for now. So I'm going to hit next. And you can see it's refreshing. Now that we have it set there, we can add items. I don't usually add items from the customizer view, but I'm going to do it for now. I also prefer to go into the appearance menus section of the dashboard, but I will add one via this page just for the sake of demonstration. So we have home, that's already there, and then custom links. We can just put a hash here and say test link, add to menu. Custom links are really handy if you want to link to other parts of the page, like if you're doing a scrolling down to a certain part of the page, and if you are linking to an external web page instead of one of your existing pages. They're very versatile, and usually I use them by default, so it's easier to swap in and out links. Now you can see that we just have test link now. So our menu before we added something was just displaying whatever links it could find. Now that we're actually adding pages intentionally, we can go in here and add home with this plus, rearrange it because it was empty before, and our test link. And so now when we hit publish and refresh over here, you'll see we have home and we have test link, which doesn't go anywhere, but now we're actually in control of what links are shown there instead of it displaying whatever random pages it finds, which is much more professional. And I will real quickly show you where the other menu area is in WordPress. The one that I actually prefer to use is appearance menus. And you can see our main menu is here. Home and test link are there. We can change them, rearrange them. We can make them into sublinks of each other if we want to, where it would appear as a drop-down item from home, and we'll show that in a second. Sometimes you will have multiple menus. I'm just going to add menu 2 here. And it can get a little bit confusing because it has to manually refresh to change the menu. So if you have multiple menus, you'll see you have this section here. And if you're not seeing what you think, just make sure the menu name looks correct, and if it doesn't, go here to primary menu and hit select, and that'll be the main menu. And then if we go back and refresh, we should now have test link as a drop-down item inside home, which is pretty cool because all we had to do was drag it as a sub-item of home, and that's how we make nested menus. That's enough about menus, and that is enough about the default header in WordPress. We've customized it a ton just now. What we're going to do now is completely replace this with a custom header, and how we do that is we go to Divi Theme Builder. This is a new feature as of Divi 4.0, I believe. And this is really handy if you want a header that doesn't really fall within the guidelines of all the settings we just displayed. So we can go to Add Global Header, Build Global Header, and I'm going to build from scratch and do, let's see, I'm going to do this look here. I'm going to have the logo in this little box and everything else in this right box. And so over here I'm going to go Image. And for the image, I'm just going to hit delete. And if you hit this little, kind of looks like a little database, little stack of platters, or the pancakes, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to click Site Logo. This means you're dynamically grabbing something from another part of the site. So I'm going to grab the site logo, and it'll grab that Instagram logo we uploaded before. It doesn't display, but it is there, and so we can test it when we actually open up the page. Over here, I'm going to grab the menu element, which lets us display content from one of our WordPress menus, in this case, main menu. And right now we also see nothing, probably because it's white text. So I'm going to go, and you can set logo with here too. The kinds of menus I create are generally a little more custom, so I'm going to split them up intentionally here. Elements, no search icon, no shopping cart icon. Looks like we don't need to change anything else here, so I'm going to go into Design, Menu Text, Active Link Color, I'm just going to go with black, Menu Text Color black, and icons, logo, I think I'm just going to leave all that as default for now. So we can see there is our home right there. It's taking up quite a bit of vertical width because it's just going to fill the space. So in our case, since we have so few items, we might just go in here and change the layout a little bit to one that's a little bit tighter on the right side. Might even do this one where it's just tight on the left, tight on the right, empty space in the middle. You can adjust that as you need, and I'm just going to move this into the right side, and now home is way over there. And you can change alignment and things with the settings and or with CSS inside the module, but for now I'm just going to hit save. And because this is a quote-unquote global header, it should already have replaced the default header over here. So if we refresh, this should go away, and the new global header will appear up top. So if I just shift and refresh, and it did not apply, because if we hit save, and we close this out, and we save changes, which is sometimes a better way to go about it, is saving the changes inside this screen as well. There we go. So the reason it didn't apply was because we didn't close out and save changes here as well. And so now if we go in here and refresh, we have our logo and we have our text with our drop down. That logo is horrendously huge. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a bound around it. So we're going to go to the pencil here. And Divi does not want to display my SVG inside the editor for some reason, but that's okay. Because it's an SVG, it can fill the space as wide as we want it to, so we need to set some bounds on it. So I'm going to go to Sizing, Max Width, and I'm just going to set it to 200 pixels max width, module alignment left, check and save. And learning from what didn't work before, we're going to save, close, and hit the other save button so that it applies faux show. Close that out. Close that out. Shift and refresh. Oh goodness. So if you want to do what I do, this is a little bit more advanced. Inspect element. And we're going to see what we can do. The max width on the image is 100%. Max width on the image wrap, also 100%. Module image header, Max width 200. So this is just me guessing and checking now. If I just go down, 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 down. It is a square logo, so I guess I should have started off with a much smaller, oops, smaller value. So 50 is much more reasonable. If you don't feel comfortable using the inspector here and looking at this, that's totally fine. I will just tell you that if it's a square logo and you want it to look that size, then go with more like 50. And if it's a rectangular logo, then 150-ish is a good starting point, and you can go up and down from there. And notice that our header is quite bland, so I'm going to add a background color. You can do a lot more with your headers, and this is just the very basics of how to design it. But once you have this framework in place, you can design it just like any other Divi header. And so if I change the background and set the color to, say, this nice orange color here, check that off, and you can see we have a conflict here, so I'm going to change the background. Yeah, it's straight white, so I'm going to set it to translucent. There we go, fixes that. And anything else fancy you want to do, because it's a custom header, we can do almost anything. So we can set a border, because it's just a Divi element. I'm going to set it to 10. Give it a little bit of a curve, but only on the bottom, so that it gives it a bit more visual interest. So I'm actually going to crank that up to like 30. What the heck, maybe it's a really curvy brand. And we'll go. It is Instagram after all. There we go. And so now I've got this cool curve effect. Now I can set a box shadow. Give it a cool fade. Gonna make that fade a little less strong. I'm gonna knock that down to about there. Check it off. Save that. And then we should test and see what it looks like on tablet. And that goes down to the collapsible mode. That orange and that reddish clash, so could be something to fix. I'm not going to address it right now, but that's just for our template schemes. And we can't see the logo in this view because the SVG is being silly. You're probably not using SVGs, so it shouldn't be a problem for you, but I'm just going to save again, and then go and test this on the actual site. Refresh. There we go, and what you didn't see me do is I had to stop the page loading and shift refresh, and also set that to 50 pixels wide because I forgot to do that. But now you can see our header, which is very unique now. It's got this orange and this glow to it, which is pretty cool. And if we, goodness, I cannot grab the edges of this page. There we go. If we shrink it down, we can test and see. Okay, so we have the drop down. They get out of alignment there a little bit, and the background of the drop down is transparent, so we would have to change that. And if we shrink it down, these aren't in alignment anymore, so we should probably do something with that. And if we keep shrinking, okay. And so I won't fiddle on this too much. This is sort of it's a bit finicky when you're building a custom header like this. If you want to make it easier on yourself, you could put the logo here and just make this all one big row, and then just mess with the background as you wish, which would probably be the recommended step. I'm just doing the more difficult one for sake of demonstration. Or B, just use the default Divi headers built in like we were showing in the beginning of the video. Depending on your preference and how custom the design is that you are building. Just for the sake of fixing these issues that we've seen immediately, going to go to the drop-down menu background color, set that to white. Right now it's translucent, and I'll check that off. And then on the logo, I'm going to set it so that it is alignment on tablet. I'm going to center it, and I might just center this guy too. Oh, we have a bit of symmetry. So I'll just do style centered here, and that should make it easier on mobile and won't make too much difference on desktop. So check that off, save that. And just so I can see this, is it getting a little bit ridiculous, I'm going to change the logo here. Look at that. So in cases like that where it's hard to grab, you can also just go to the builder here, hit the cog icon, and then switch back to the view you were in. That's a little trick to open it up. I'm going to change this, insert from URL, paste that. Yeah, it's a JPEG. Oh well. And just do nothing to it. Insert into post. Now I can actually see it on the page. And for some reason, alignment is not obeying us in the center. It's because when we were here in the sizing section, we set module alignment, and this one trumps all the rest. And so if we go tablet center and mobile center, now that logo will actually be centered. And perhaps I want that to grow a little bit, so on tablet, I'm going to make the max width be 100, and that should cascade down to mobile. Perfect. Check that off. And we'll make sure the background for the drop-down menu is indeed white. Mobile menu background color, that's what we're looking for, and that should be white. Check mark, save, close and save, shift refresh. And so now if we scale this down, that's centered, and this opens up with a white background. Perfect. You can see it does get cut off because we are rounding the edges. If it was longer than that, we would do some fanciness to fix that, but we don't really need to do that right now because it does fit. So actually makes it look quite clean, which is nice. And so that is start to finish how to make a custom header. You can obviously do a lot more with a custom header, but that's all we really need. And there you have it. That is 2 ways to create and edit headers in Divi, both with the default one provided by the theme where you edit it through the customizer, and doing a fully custom one on your own if you have a crazy design where you want to do these curves and drop shadows and whatever other crazy alignment you may want to do. This gives you a ton more flexibility if you are inclined to do so, and if your designer is getting a little more liberal with the designs, then fantastic. Divi will let you do that, and that is super empowering. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Cheers.